Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sportsnaut Interview. F1 is the subject today. Yes, we cover F1 here at Sportsnaut. And today we're going to be talking later on with Michaela Costarez, an influencer, content creator known for her She Loves Vroom. She covers F1, has done brand work there. Really a fascinating conversation. We're going to share a little bit of that with you today, as well as just talk about the growth of the sport. I'd love to hear what you have to say about F1. You know, NASCAR in America has always been huge. F1 continues to grow. And if you look at the growth of this international sport, it's really remarkable. And it's starting to gain real traction as it has in the last few years in the United States. Now, there's only 3 races a year in the United States. You have the Miami Grand Prix coming up here. And then you have, of course, the circuit of the Americas, or excuse me, the Grand Prix of the Americas out at COTA in Austin, Texas. And now the last event of the season is in Las Vegas. In November, you have the Las Vegas Grand Prix. So 3 events here in the United States. But if you look at global surging and growth of F1, I got my trusty notes here because at my age, sometimes you forget things. But you look at F1, you see the global fan base has increased 90 million since 2023. 90 million in just a year and a half since the last data came in. And if you look at this and the audience, you're talking 826.5 million F1 fans around the world. Wow, that is a big, big number. And 50 million new fans since 2021. That's Nielsen sports data. Also, key areas, key markets where it's grown. China, 39%. Canada, 32%. Argentina, 26%. And Saudi Arabia, 26%. And in Saudi Arabia, particularly, they're invested heavily now. Of course, they have a Grand Prix over there. Bahrain, right down the road, has one. A road, I should say, in the Gulf there, has a race there too. Back-to-back races, as a matter of fact. So growing incredibly fast in the Middle East. And I think what's fueling this is the technology. You can track it, the marketing, the social media, the content creation that F1 and all of the teams, the individual teams do as well, has really created this firestorm. People falling in love with the sport. Now, in the United States, we'll get to that in a second, but in the United States, it's harder, right? Because only 3 races here. And we'll get to some of the obstacles, which are cost, primarily, I think, number one, and access, right? It happens to be an impetus to not get into it because, well, I can't watch races except for 1 in the morning. If I want to go to a race in Las Vegas, it's going to cost me $1,700 for a seat. So it's hard, but still, it's growing. In America, we talked about the massive growth in the world. But if you look at the United States here, listen to this. So this also comes from the latest data out of, what was it? Nielsen Sports. Okay. You look at this, the U.S. market since Liberty Media, which is now the media rights company that kind of markets and holds the F1 brand, owns the F1 brand in 2017. Again, they went from 1 race to 3, Miami, Austin, and Vegas. The market reportedly increased by 10.5% since 2023. So that's last season's number. So 10% year over year, adding nearly 90 million new fans just in the United States. So this is why it's growing so fast here. You saw similar growth between 23 and 24. That was 52 million fans. And one source has about 9% drop in average TV ratings last season, which was a little bit of a surprise, but attendance has not gone down. So when the races are here, that's what's happening. But I think that you have to look at the cost, the fact that you can't take a family to an F1 race in the United States. So you talk about the generational thing there, and certainly there's some uphill battle. So it's not all perfect. As fast as it's growing, F1 has its challenges here in the United States. I think that's primarily it. It's access and cost. I mean, even to be a fan of one of the teams, you have merchandise, just like you have in the NFL or MLB or NBA, whatever your league is. You can buy their jerseys. Well, in this case, drivers wear suits, but the teams wear jerseys. They wear shirts, there's pants, there's shoes, you name it. They're all really costly. I mean, you get an F1 team t-shirt on the official F1 store, which is run by Fanatics. And you're talking about $100 for a t-shirt. Now you want to get a sweatshirt, you want to get a hat. A hat's about $60, just a regular ball cap. Maybe you're a Ferrari or Mercedes, a Red Bull fan, whatever, you're McLaren. So it's costly. I think that's part of the issues. I think that's part of the issues with the plateau we're seeing with with TV mostly. The growth with Fanbase continues, but I think that as fandom explodes, they're going to have to focus on momentum. And how do they do that? And I think what we'll talk about with Mikaela coming up, because this is what she does so well, is around content creation. Because if I can't go to a race or I can't watch it with my son because it's on in the middle of the night, then bring it to me. Bring me content. I want to know who these drivers are. I want to know who these teams are. How do you break down the humanity, the personality, right? So I think if F1 can figure out how to do that, not only worldwide, but also here in the United States, they can do it. Now, some good news. You have, starting next year, both Ford Motor Company and Ford Racing, and GM with Cadillac are getting back into as a major manufacturer for Formula One. So these folks at Ford and GM via Cadillac are going to do it. So now you have some American skin in the game, if you will. And there have been in the past. You go back, of course, Ford built F1 and GM was involved in that too. So now you're going to do it. But I think F1 TV, YouTube, and the YouTube content that the teams and the F1 itself put out, these are all huge offerings. Also, one of the big ones, esports. Now, if you're my age, esports, what's that? Well, you know what it is if you're in the right Prime group and you're probably watching me saying, what's this old guy talking about? Like he doesn't know what esports is. But no, esports, playing the F1 game, there's other racing games. It's a big deal. A lot of kids play it, and that's their introduction into the sport. So F1 does a great job of marketing theirs. The F1 2025 comes out at the end of May. And so by leveraging platforms like that, I think that's how you continue to build your audience, because you're not going to do it through spectators and in some ways merchandise as much as folks can afford it. So I think to grow the sport, keep making it accessible through these digital channels, keep finding ways to interact with that 16 to 24-year-old group, which is big. And we'll talk about that specifically with women, because Mikaela is a font of knowledge because she's been an F1 fan, grew up in a motorsports family, and she talks about all the time how women love Formula One for so many different reasons, and we'll get into that conversation with her as well. Now, the other thing I will say is, as you listen to the conversation with Mikaela, or a portion of the conversation with Mikaela, understand that she is, like so many younger women in the United States who love this sport for all kinds of different reasons. And so if you're a race fan and your significant other or sister or mom or daughter, whatever, hasn't gotten into it, you might want to expose them to some of that content if they already haven't been, because they might find that they just like Formula One and they didn't know it. So we'll see. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Michaela Costarez will be with us. She's going to talk to us about F1, and we'll get into some great information. This is the Sportsnaut Interview. I'm Scott Gulbransen. Don't go anywhere. Okay, so now let's jump back into women in F1, because this really fascinates me. And again, I lived it with my daughter, and now my wife's starting to come along. You mentioned earlier, 41% of the total fan base is female, 16 to 24-year-old being the fastest growing. And the female viewership, 34% increase in just 1 year. You talked about Netflix, great series, Drive to Survive. It has to do with it. But when you look at the appeal of F1, like you said earlier, some of these folks want to make it about, well, all these drivers. Yeah, I've not seen an ugly driver. They're all handsome young guys, in great shape.
But they are wearing helmets.
They are wearing helmets. So you don't get to see them all the time. And you don't get to see any of them all the time, except their hands through the camera, right?
Yeah.
But these guys are incredible athletes. What is it about the sport, the culture? Because there's a culture around F1, like you mentioned earlier. What is it about the sport and the culture of F1 that has been so attractive to women and continues to be?
I think the answer to your question is that there isn't a single defining thing that women like about it. I think
Mm,
women are super multi-passionate and we love so many different things. And some women really, enjoy maybe the business aspect of it. Some women are aspiring engineers or engineers in the field, and they really love the technology and the aerodynamics of the cars. Some women like both. Some
mm,
women really like the social media or the personalities on the grid. I think there's just so many different reasons why women or any person likes a sport and enjoys the sport. And I think that's why it's so successful, is because now we're starting to see that on social media. There's just so many different reasons to exist and engage in this space, and the larger ecosystem around it. And I think that that's just being further amplified by all of these different social media accounts and creators and the drivers and teams themselves, the official accounts. They're now
hmm.
starting to play into the trends and long form content on YouTube or podcasts like Williams, funny behind the scenes moments. They're really leaning into it. And so
Yeah.
I think that that's a great thing to watch and it'll be interesting to see. But I honestly don't think that there's one single thing that women love about the sport. I think women are so unique and diverse, and there's so many reasons that they love and engage with it. And that's why it's been so successful.
It's funny too because I think people try to always find a reason, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, and I thought your answer was perfect. Because even if I think about it as a man, I can't understand a woman's perspective on this, but as a man, I don't like one sport because of one reason. There's lots of
Yeah.
reasons you like it, right? And that also assumes that women are all the same and that they only like certain things for certain reasons. That's absolutely not true. There's women who
Mm,
are gearheads, right? They love
exactly.
the science of F1 because F1's incredible. And that's one of the things that I love about it is if you're a geek when it comes to tech, you're going to love F1. If you love personalities and like you said, style, fashion, you're going to love
You're gonna
F1.
love it.
You're
Yeah.
going to love F1. If you love
Or
travel,
both.
yeah, or both. Yeah. That's the
Yep.
thing. You're not bound into one reason to like thing. And I think that's why to me, the in all the reading I've done, the growth with women and the sport is because there is so much to offer there. There's so much and it's very rich. And to your point about them leaning into some of the content they're doing, and I think this is a problem for all of sports actually, is how do you humanize the athlete, right?
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes sports, like here in America, whether it's the big sports like the NFL or the NBA, they try to do it, but execution. F1 is a little more, even though the teams have their own handles and they do a good job too. I think F1 as an organization overall keeps a tighter lid and a tighter story, a tighter narrative around it. Whereas the other sports, it's by team. So some teams can be really good at it, and some teams are just really brutal at it. And so if they have athletes, because there's all kinds of different stories out there, and I think F1 does a good job of that. And I think women have picked up on that, right? Because they're intelligent consumers who are very discerning, right? And they're discerning, so they're looking for something, and it seems to be resonating with them. When you hear from women who follow you and the content you create, sort of what is it about what you do that they like so much?
I the most common feedback I get is that people just really like that I am authentically myself and that I show up really honestly in what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy. And I think that really inspires people to show up respectively in their own unique ways. So I don't know necessarily if it's, my pop culture takes or my connections to Bridgerton or, talking about fashion or social media. I really think what it boils down to is how I just show up as myself and encourage others to do the same, however that looks for them. Because I think the more people that we have showing up honestly and authentically in this space is only
Mm.
going to encourage a more diverse and beautiful fan base, that is reflective of this really international sport. And all of the people who watch it are different and diverse and unique, in their own ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I'll be honest with you. I'm an alpha male, so I'll go smoke a cigar with some buddies, and I start talking about F1, and they're like, "Oh, what are you uppity?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? What uppity?" And it's so funny though because the culture, and I bring this up to you because I've heard you talk about this before, is that it doesn't matter what subculture you go into. If you're a big fan of college football, if you're a big fan of tennis, of golf, whatever it is, it seems as though when those new fans, and I think to your point, this is why you've been so successful at it because of being authentic. When new fans come in, there tends to be a pushback. Well, you haven't been around. You can't name me the champion from 1964.
Oh yeah.
No, I
What did
can't.
Fernando Alonso have for breakfast in 1992? It's like,
Yeah,
what did he have for breakfast? I don't, it's just the most random things, the sort of gatekeeper mentality. But of course,
yeah.
we have to remember that this was like the cool guys club for a very long time. And since then it's, blown up into a much different thing. And for that, I just remind myself that those people enjoy a sport differently than I do, and that's
There you go.
okay. And as long as I think we're respectful of each other, existing in this space, that's really how we can, exist happily. But I think that's more of a fantasy than a reality because, of course, the internet is a divisive place, and some people are less kind than others.
Well, listen, we appreciate the time today, but a couple more questions I have for you. One, you ready? This is a big one because F1 calls you and says, look, Michaela, we want you to come up with a strategy and be in charge of growing the sport in America.
Hmm.
What do you do? I mean, you can't go from 0 to 100 like these guys in the cars, but if you were in charge of F1 in the United States to just build the fan base to
Oh,
get
I'm not
people.
going to give away my ideas to Formula
Well,
One
no,
for
you don't have
free.
to give
I
away
do
your great
that.
idea.
I
Give some
do that
generalizations.
enough all the time. I think it would probably benefit them to maybe look at the costs a
Uh,
bit more.
yeah, that's good. I mean, and I agree. I mean, everything is becoming more expensive. You mentioned the economy earlier and whatnot, and I think that just tends to continue to be an issue for everybody because look, if you can't go see the sport, every sport is better when you get to watch it live, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
always the way, especially racing. It's such an amazing experience to be there and to watch it close up, not in some seat where you can't see any of the action. So hopefully they do that, and it'll be interesting to see what they do moving forward. But we certainly appreciate you taking the time, and I just think that what you do is awesome, and I think that that's what makes the sport more accessible to people is the fact that there are others out there and enjoying it, and it gives them some permission, right? They might not know you personally, but they say, well, you know what? I like her and I like the sport, so I'm not gonna be ashamed about it, or I'm not gonna explain myself about it. I'm gonna be happy to talk to people about it. And maybe they become creators. I'm sure you've prompted others to create content too, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I mean that's the goal. And the goal isn't for everyone to like me. Someone could be like, "Man, I really think that girl is weird and stupid, and I'm gonna make my own thing that's completely different." And to me, it's like, the more the merrier. We can't all be in this echo chamber saying the exact same things, having the exact same opinions. That's not what sports are about. So I think it's really fun to, you know, encourage this space of diverse people and fun opinions and having that community.
Okay, who's winning in Miami this weekend? What's the
Yeah.
podium?
Oh, what's my dream podium or what
Sure,
what
let's
do
go with that.
I
That's aspirational.
aspirational? I'm manifesting a Ferrari one too. Like that
Good.
would be
Lewis Hamilton comes out of nowhere?
Yeah, I would love to see their blue Ferrari on top. It looks like they're gonna have a blue Ferrari again. That's, I'm gonna bring my sage and my crystals and do a manifesting ritual so that Charles Leclerc and, Lewis Hamilton and the Ferrari pit wall get it right.
Oh, that's funny. And believe me, I would be a happy man, and then I would get some vengeance against my son-in-law,
Yeah.
who's a big Red Bull guy, of course. And so last week I had Leclerc on my podium, and he made it.
Oh, you
for
did?
once. I did.
Wow, good for you.
Now I had him the week before too, and he's like,
Oh.
"Oh, he's like, you're too biased," and I said, "No," and so I had it right this time, and believe me, I
Yeah,
rubbed
you
it
did.
in. Rubbed it in as much as I could.
You know what? You can never count out Max Verstappen, even in the Red Bull this year.
Yeah.
And then, of course, McLaren is pretty unbeatable. It would be
Oh, yeah.
nice to see. I think Lando and Oscar, that rivalry is going to heat up a little bit. And, it'd be cool for Lando to get a second win in a row in Miami.
Correct.
That would be really wild. But Oscar's just so cool, calm, and collected. He's such a good driver. It's really, really impressive. And that car is, better than anyone. Or Mercedes could shock us all. George
Yeah,
Russell
George.
just always
Yeah.
seems
Yeah.
to be at the scene of the crime. So
Absolutely.
they
Funny
haven't
story.
had a good Miami Grand Prix yet. So
No.
I think it's time.
Yeah, yeah, and it looks like it might rain, which obviously
Yeah.
can benefit Max a little bit. But we'll see. We'll see what happens, and maybe the rain will stay out, and it'll be a competitive race. By the way, a good friend of mine, big McLaren fan, John, and he said, if I ran into Oscar Piastri in the grocery store, I would think he's a PE teacher. Little guy, good shape, but because he's so calm and he's so just. So anyway, but listen, Mikaela, I appreciate you being with us so much here on the Sportsnaut Interview. And don't forget, follow Mikaela on all the channels. She's got the same handle, @SheLovesVrooms. We also have her website listed there in the description and on the screen as well. Mikaela, we'll catch up with you later in the season and get maybe your reaction to the race, if it heats up or if McLaren just continues to pull away. That's, to me, is one of the issues. Like last year there was no close races. There was no close for the championship. It wasn't really that incredible on the grid, so I think people kind of tuned out a little bit. But this year it looks like it'll maybe be a little better, at least individually.
I think it's heating up. I think we're in for a good season ahead. So I'm excited to see what happens.
That's right. Mikaela, thanks again, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you again to Michaela Costarez. And again, don't forget to follow her at @SheLovesVrooms, plural, on all the channels. That's her same handle on all the channels. Also, you can find her website listed in the description below, either on the podcast or on the video. If you're watching us, by the way, don't forget to subscribe. This is the YouTube channel if you're watching, but also on audio. We are everywhere you get your audio, no matter where you get it. Just look for the Sportsnaut Interview. Also, we have F1 content up on sportsnaut.com. I happen to cover the sport, and you'll see a lot of content coming up. Of course, I'm talking to you right before the Miami Grand Prix, the first weekend in May, and we have plenty of coverage there. So check out that Grand Prix preview on the front page, and also subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your audio, video. Hit the subscribe, like, and notifications bell. All right. So great conversation there. Sorry we couldn't share it all with you, but we did get a bunch in there about some of the subject matter that I thought was really important to talk about. But we'll continue to do that. We'll visit with Mikaela later in the season to get her impression of what's going on in the race. Just get her race thoughts, not just the market, all that stuff, which obviously is good. But also, big story. I didn't talk about it in the opening, but before we close out here and say goodbye to you, just want to say that Formula One, with the rapid growth, and again, I think so much so in the United States, as Mikaela said, because of the Drive to Survive docuseries on Netflix. If you haven't watched it, do it. A lot of people watch the Senna documentary. There's also a great Senna docuseries, or not docuseries. It was a miniseries that is also on Netflix that was produced and made in Brazil, but it's dubbed into English. Very good show. I liked it. Got more background into Anton Setta's background, Arrington Setta's background. But the F1 is now looking for someone to buy its TV rights. So the TV rights are up for and it's available for the 2026 season. Wall Street Journal just recently did a report, says F1, they're looking for that partner. They're shopping around a number of an estimated $150 to $180 million a year. That's what they want from broadcasters for rights to the 2026 and beyond F1 season. Now, that is double. Reports say that is almost to double what ESPN currently pays. So ESPN's paying $75 million. And F1, because of that growth that we talked about with Mikaela and in the first segment, they are now asking double or more of that. And it appears that despite this popularity, despite brands jumping on board F1, including the United States, we talked about Cadillac, we talked about, of course, Ford getting back into the manufacturing business. Media companies, they're not racing out to get the F1 bid. They're not racing out to bid at this point. I think they're waiting to see what the early 2025 season, and now we're just starting the 6th round coming up in Miami. So it'll be really interesting, and we'll keep an eye on that and bring you more information here on the Sportsnaut Interview, as well as in content up on Sportsnaut and our YouTube channel about F1 as we do every week. So there you go. But again, want to thank Michaela, want to thank you for joining us for the Sportsnaut Interview, this time on Formula One. We hope you enjoyed it. Again, leave comments. Tell us what you think below, whether you're listening to us on audio or on video. We appreciate that very much. And we will see you on the grid next time. Take care, everybody.